The following is a fan-based discussion. All properties discussed are property of Toei Inc., Bandai, Hasbro, and Subaru Productions. Hello everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Tokucast Reviews, episode number 150.
The Mewtwo episode.
Marcus, Jacob here to discuss Ultraman Decker.
Yes.
Before we get into our thoughts, we have some of your comments from our Metallica review. Thank you for writing in some of yours. For example, we have Darksaber17 who says, as for Decker, I absolutely loved it. I was excited for it every week. It's easily in my top 3 Ultraman series. So I'm very glad that you like this one. Needless to say, didn't exactly feel the same. Suryavarma, forgive me if I mispronounce, Suryavarma Kandasamy 5493 says, Ultraman Decker is a good show, but it needs more opening music and fights, as I freaking love it. And Trigger Dark should have shown up. And then, again, forgive me if I mispronounce your name, Havis Mustaqim 527. Decker is pretty good, way better than Trigger, on that I agree, but might as well have low expectation. It is fairly either A or B, an A or a B. So, let's jump into where we thought, starting with the opening.
I like the opening. I actually like the fact they rarely ever played it in the show proper. I think the only time that I really remember them playing it was actually at the end. And I loved it.
Well, I'm glad you did. I was indifferent on this one. I didn't hate it. It just...
Oh, no. That's pretty much how I felt about the actual song proper. I just like...
It was fine.
If you're going to play it in the show, you gotta save it. You can't pull a Ginga and play it every episode in the show proper. It's like, you gotta save it for something big. And they really only played it twice in show, and I'm just like, yes, that you got to play it at big moments. You can't play it always.
So how do we want to break this down? Do we want to do good, bad, terrible, bad? Or...
Sure.
May as well. Overall, I think this show is okay.
Yeah, it's fine.
At least for me.
I see nothing wrong with it. It's not hard to be better than Trigger. When the writing staff of that team have explicitly talked about how they did not like writing for that show.
I don't think that makes any difference. Even if you don't like the show you're writing for, you should still try and do a good job.
They were constrained by COVID and just like directors things and a whole bunch of other stuff. But this time they had a little bit more free reign and you could see that in the show proper. But yeah.
Overall, yes, definitely a massive improvement over Trigger.
Not hard to do.
But I think the best thing, start with the best, I think the best thing this show has going for it is the action.
Yes.
This show does some incredible things.
Yeah.
With its camera work, with its set pieces, with the action, with the monsters themselves. So many of them are like, oh, thank God, it's not just a show a monster that they dusted off in the closet and then threw on somebody.
Like, it's not just Gamora, it's Sphere Gamora. And I'm just like, okay.
It's a dinosaur.
With spikes on it.
Spicesaurus. It looks a lot like Space Godzilla.
Yeah.
Gave me Space Godzilla vibes. Not a bad thing at all. Space Godzilla rules. But, yeah, so the action and... I mean, just like the first episode alone where we have shots of Ultraman running through the streets, but it's like a head-on shot. That's like, we're on a dolly following him as he runs through the streets, buildings blowing up around him. We get POVs of monsters that are trying to smash him into the ground. There's some really good stuff in this.
Yeah.
If you come for the action, that's definitely what you should stay for.
Yeah, that's probably the best part about this.
Anything else good?
Weirdly enough, I wasn't sold on his story, but I sort of like Agon's actor. Like the work that he did. He had a lot of facial motion. Episode 14 has probably one of my favorite fights in this entire show.
Which one was that?
That is the one where Go Blue comes in. From the future. And
that was Go Blue?
Yeah.
Really? Huh.
Kamen Rider Amazon Alpha. But yeah, he takes over as Decker for that episode. And I'm sitting here like, can we just get a show with just him? He had so much personality. Which I don't think that the main character was terrible at, but he sort of was just the same.
Are you talking about our
protagonist?
Asami.
Yeah. It's just like with you know, Decker, Asami from the future,
Mm-hmm.
gave the name to the Ultra. It's just like, for the little bit of time that he was in this show and seeing him fight as Decker proper, it was just so much more interesting to see him do things. He was great. He stood out to me immediately. It could have been the fact that we already know him from 2 other shows. Legitimately, he's done all big 3 now.
Oh yeah. so he has.
He was a writer. He was a Sentai member, and he's an
now
Ultra.
He's an Ultra.
So he gets to. He's one of the few that's done all 3.
He needs to be Garo now.
Yeah, he's one of the few that gets to do all 3. So it's just like, I really appreciate what he's done in this, and I feel like we need to show just him. I don't think we need Kanata. Kanata was a little basic for me.
It makes you wonder why they didn't just, because he's the one who got the Ultra in the first place and sent it back to the past for Kanata to use. Mm-hmm. It kind of makes you wonder why they didn't just do a show about him. Maybe they will in the future. Maybe that'll be the sequel where we get like Decker Origin.
Oh, the Amazon Prime show.
I mean, if it aired there, that'd be fine. Be easy to watch.
As long as it's better than Orb Origin.
Yeah. But anyway, what else good?
Although I wasn't exactly sold on the cast, I think the cast is honestly fine. Having one of the Kaku Rangers voice Hanajiro.
Oh, really?
Was the thing. I believe it's Blue. He's the one from the It's Friday in California meme. He voices him in this, and I'm just like, he did great work. Yeah.
I think we should want to move into the bad next.
Yeah.
Bad might be too strong of a word. Bad, but also just more mediocre. Mediocre, I think, is a better word, because I don't think this show is bad.
No.
It's fine, but it never really rises above that.
Yeah.
And I think it comes down to the script.
Yeah.
For me, it comes down to the script. Again, Ogham's, like you said, good performance, but I never really felt attached to him as a villain.
And I think the reason that you never really felt attached to him as a villain is because of the fact that he really only comes in about halfway through the show.
Because he's introduced as as a supporting character. He's a scientist. He's working with Gut Select. He's helping them out, and then we get we're led to assume that he is a villain because in the episode that he is revealed to be such, there's a scene of him monologuing by himself,
which they honestly do really good with the camera work here. Because it's, and the sound design, because it's completely quiet in there, except with like a slight echo from the words that he's saying, and they're doing like a whole bunch of Dutch angles and everything, low shots of him. It makes him seem like a little bit deranged, and I appreciate that. It's just the fact that there was no real hint building up to this, and it feels like a missed opportunity. Mm-hmm.
Because his actual backstory, I think, is interesting.
Yeah.
Because he's an alien from a planet that was destroyed in the future as a result of
the sphere
of the spheres, and he wasn't saved.
His wife was killed.
Yeah, his wife and his family.
His wife and his dog,
dogs are great.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you learn about that, and we learn about it in flashbacks. The flashbacks aren't the most well done.
No.
In terms of the way they are structured and the way they are edited. And that's the thing about the show is like I watched it and it's just I'm struggling to summon any emotion other than like, oh yeah, the action was good. The rest of it was just like a flat line. Because we're introduced to our main character. He works at a shop, a confectioner shop. He makes rice crackers.
There's actually one other good thing I want to talk about. The first time that Decker is human-sized is one of the funniest things because he just can't believe it. He's like...
Wait a minute. I have something to ask you. Do you prefer Ultraman where it's a human is a host to another being? Or when the actual Ultra takes a human form? Or in the case of something like this where like they're turning it, where it's like the human is turning into Ultraman. Ultraman is not a separate being.
Honestly,
because it's like the 3 different versions, and
it sort of goes back and forth because, I mean, we have something like Mebius and...
where he actually is the Ultra. Like, that's him just in the form of a human.
Mebius and G, there's just like, it's them and...
G's another example.
Those are two of our favorites.
Yeah.
But then you have something like X or Z, and I'm just like, I really like both of those as well.
Or they're hosts.
Yeah.
And those, I think, also work.
Yeah. I think those are pretty much the way that I really like for them to do it.
Mm-hmm. But again, it's like, that's not really the method that really defines the show. Just
it's just...
I'd like it to be a little more consistent, I guess I would say, moving forward.
I don't think it has to be completely consistent because it does end up bringing a little bit of a different feel depending on what show you're watching. Like with Mebius,
that's true.
He wasn't human, so he had to learn a lot for that.
Yeah.
And, Jeed had everything with his dad, but then you have something like with Tiga, where there's a whole history with Tiga, and Daigo has to catch up to that. And I sort of just appreciate.
Mm-hmm. How do you think it was used in this? Where it was, he's given a transformation device, and it's like it's like henching into Kamen Rider.
Yeah, that's
except he's 50 feet tall.
I'm honestly sort of not the biggest fan when the Ultra has no personality on his own.
We don't really get anything from him outside of grunts.
Yeah.
When he's in Ultra form, we don't...
But it's still Kanata.
But it's still Kanata. We do get, like, the internal shots, but those are never vocalized exteriorly.
Yeah.
And I think that gives a little bit of a weird disconnect.
Yeah.
The fact that we have to constantly keep cutting in to remind us, this is this person, instead of just having him talk normally.
Yeah, which is like...
I mean, like, change his voice maybe a little, like, amplify it or add an echo or something to let us know that, like, he's bigger now, but...
Yeah, it's one of those things where I'm just like, I do like it when the Ultra has a little bit of a personality. Like X, or even though I don't really like the show that much, Taiga. Especially we had 3 of them there.
Yeah.
So...
I think one of the biggest things that stood out to me about this, and thinking back on the last couple Ultras we watched as well, man, Don Brothers spoiled me on what it is that Toku storytelling has evolved to be able to do in some regards. Because you look at what Gita's doing, you look at what Black Sun did, you look at Don Brothers, what King Odra is doing, what Kira Major did with its back to basics nature, but like still keeping the focus on the characters. Ultraman, I mean, Garo as well with, Versus Road, with the anime and whatnot. Ultraman, more than any other Toku, seems stuck in the past.
Yeah.
It seems like it has a comfort zone, and it is not leaving it, even with the force of an industrial power movie.
It has before, and it sort of backfired on them, so they sort of been scared to do that again.
What was the time that they...
Nexus.
Yeah, but Nexus was good, which is a shame.
That's when they tried something different.
They tried something different, because it was much darker. It was the first one we watched.
Yeah.
And but like this, with Trigger, with, Zed and all of them, there are monsters, Ultraman has to fight the monster, and it's not about the characters. It's about Ultraman fighting bad guys.
Or in some case, I mean, like, you had Eleking in this. I would never appreciate an Eleking redesign. I just want Eleking as Eleking. That's the only one where I'm just like, Eleking. But, yeah, I mean, like, you had that episode where Eleking wasn't the bad guy. It was really just an alien who was really out of his element.
Yeah.
I really wish we could have had more dealing with, the spear have cut off the world from the outside. And you have these aliens on planet that, they can't leave, or they were there, they were planning to leave, and they can't. So you have somebody like Eleking.
Or you have Kanata's parents who were stuck on Mars.
Yeah, or the fighter guy, whose name I can't remember at this exact moment.
Don't blame you.
The fighter alien. He was also there. Gregor.
Mm-hmm.
Him and his daughter. I really wish we could have gotten more dealing with, there are actual repercussions for them being cut off. Like, you have legitimately a whole other planet.
Mm-hmm.
You got Mars. That was the whole basis of the last show.
Yeah, sort of. Until we went to Earth immediately in the second episode.
Yeah.
And stayed there.
Yeah. Which is, it just didn't feel like it really wanted to do anything big, and I think that really held Trigger back.
I don't know. That's not that they wanted to do anything big. It's just they only wanted to do one thing, and that was have him fight stuff.
Yeah. It just.
And again, the action's great.
Yeah.
The action's some of the best in the Ultra series. It's really well shot. It's well choreographed. Great sense of movement. Great sense of scale. They do some cool things with the camera. Good cinematography. All that. But if you don't care about the characters involved with it, then it's just noise.
And that's pretty much exactly where I ended up with this show. It's. I feel like we sort of had to get to the bad here because we've sort of just been this thing.
Go ahead. Because that's something I would lump in with bad if we're gonna start there.
I would just let's just combine these last two because we usually do that.
Yeah, fair enough.
I never want to see Trigger again. His actor. If only because he's written so poorly.
I'm so glad you brought this up because having a cameo or an appearance from a past character, you getting invested in that is hinged upon you caring about that character.
And it's real hard.
And if it's Trigger, I find it very difficult to care because Trigger was awful.
There are no smiley.
No,
when I see him. It's just, why are you here?
Pretty much. Like the instant he showed up, it wasn't like, yay! It was like, oh, great. You. Well, I can't wait for you to say, and he said his catchphrase.
Several times. And other people started saying his catchphrase.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just like, no. He's a bland character. They made him very bland in Trigger proper, and he doesn't really get much here. Sure, there's that cool fight scene on the moon, but once again, that's just a fight scene.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't say anything about him. And then you end up getting a glimpse into Kanda's parents, and I'm just sitting here like, what? We don't even really get anything with them at the end of the show.
No, they just come back and they're like, hey, we're back.
And I'm just like...
That's it. That's all you get.
No, thank you. No, thank you. Especially, you get hints of this future is, war-torn. That Decker is much more used to fighting. And I'm just like, that's a much more interesting story that we should have gotten. And we didn't. So I'm left wanting something from that, but not from this. The characters aren't really that interesting either. Which is weird.
No, they're not. And again, they're not bad characters.
No.
It's not like... Because in Trigger, they were actively annoying.
Yeah.
They were trying some stuff with Trigger. They tried to go for comedy in some places. Tried to make them cool. Tried to make them charismatic and likable. But they just came across as annoying. And then in this one, they're all fine... But I just don't care about you as a character because I don't really know much about you.
And then they brought back Carmiara, and I'm just like, you died in a fire.
They brought her back, and then Trigger goes off to find a new planet for her and her compatriots, who are now little balls of light. And I'm like, I don't care. You were evil. You did lots of bad things, and you suddenly being a good person now, or at the very least, not evil enough to the point where we want to smash your face. I just don't care.
Like, yeah, you get the cool fight scene.
Yeah.
But again,
it was cool seeing three ultras, fight a big old monster. That's cool.
Yeah.
But one of them was like a villain who is just back now for some reason.
It's still just
also, remember how Ultraman Trigger ended and he was like trapped in a nexus of some sort? And they're like, don't worry, he'll be back someday. And now he's just back.
So it's been 7 years. Yeah. But
it's just like somehow he's back.
Yeah.
Yeah. Disappointing to say the least.
Exceedingly.
Do you have any other thoughts?
How are you back?
That's another...
How was she back?
She just was. Unless it was in a movie we missed.
No.
Does it just say on the wiki she came back somehow?
Yeah.
May as well.
It's something with the Eternity Core that they use. It's just like she was in it somehow, and I'm just like, God damn. I don't care.
Again, cameos and reappearing characters are hinged upon you liking them. If you don't...
Or it's been long enough so you forget.
But I still think it requires you being invested in them as characters.
Yeah, but I wasn't invested in any character from Ginga. But when he came back later on, I was like, yeah, I'm glad you're here. With Trigger, just like, we just left you. And I didn't like you then. I don't like you now.
Yeah. That we did. Anything else to add?
This show is fine. It had some weirdly good like cuts to the ending. I remember that like when the captain was being interrogated by Internal Affairs and like they had Hanajiro play music, and then he like played the wrong music. He was like, "Oh, how about this?" And then it cuts to the ending music, and I'm just like, fantastic. And there was another one where they had like a twin-headed monster that was like terrorizing that town when it was a small thing, and it like went screaming up into the air, and that transitioned into the opening. I'm just like, at least they get inventive with some things, but most of this, I'm just like, I don't think this show is that good. Unfortunate. I don't really remember much of Trigger either, so that just makes this worse. I didn't really know that he could like backflip like he could when they were fighting on the moon. That was cool.
Lower gravity. But anyway, I think that'll do it.
Yeah, this show, it exists. In a vacuum.
Another space to fill the void.
In a vacuum, it's fine. As a sequel to Trigger, why are they there? It's a retread. The enemies are from Dyna. Just like the enemies from Trigger were from the Tiga movie. I'm really happy. It seems like Blazer is not going to be New Generation Gaia. So we can just get away from doing New Generation thing we did before. Yeah. But yeah.
Ultimately, my final word would be get out of your comfort zone, Ultraman.
Yeah.
Please try and branch out and be more about characters.
You did that just 2 years ago with Zed.
I'd argue they did it a few months ago with Shin Ultraman.
That too. It's a whole different thing, though. I'm talking about just like shit.
I know.
But yeah. Next up,
we are reviewing Kikaider.
Yes, the original Kikaider. Not the movie. We'll be going back to the 70s for this. I'm sort of excited because I've heard the show was sort of a mess. So I'm excited to see the mess.
Oh, goody.
But yeah. Let us know what you thought of Decker in the comments below. Let us know what you think, if you've seen it. Kikaider. Let us know what you think of Kikaider. Don't forget to join us on all the things, and we'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.
Thank you for watching.